Hello and welcome to the Wad Fam Chalk Pod. I'm Dylan Weaver.
And I'm Andrew Sabo.
Hey guys, we're back!
To talk about Adventures in Odyssey, the thing that we do on this podcast.
Yep. Specifically this week, episode 685, The Green Ring Conspiracy, part 7.
Yahtzee. We've reached the halfway point last week, which we already talked about.
Wow. Good
recap. Great recap.
I'm so glad I have you as a co-host.
Yeah, only the brightest and most valuable color commentary from this half of the table.
Hey, I mean, that's what we're here for, folks. So, we literally have no context for this episode, Andrew. Every cast member has already been in an episode of the series.
Great.
It continues to be written and directed by Paul McCusker. It continues to air the week after the previous one. It continues to be track 7. Like, there's nothing.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Very straightforward.
Maybe here's the closest thing I have to context. It is the shortest episode so far in the saga.
Interesting.
It is still 22 minutes.
Yeah.
The other ones have been closer to 25 most times.
Yeah, like 24 minutes mostly. That is interesting. And honestly, it does kind of feel it. This episode feels very much so more transitional than I would say the previous one. Like, we talked a lot of good, we talked up the last episode quite a bit and how much we enjoyed it. And I don't think this episode was, like, actively bad.
No, it's just like every few episodes we gotta just do plot.
Yeah, exactly. And that is what this is.
Yep.
Is there a promo for this one?
There is indeed, and I'm rolling it now.
On the next adventure in Odyssey, Wit investigates Monty's mysterious disappearance.
I want to explore that chip implant technology.
But Emily's new friend might hold the key to an even bigger mystery.
There's something suspicious about Buck. I don't trust him.
He's friendly and charming and handsome.
And he's also up to something.
It's one mystery after another. Next time on Adventures in Odyssey.
I'm going to explore that chip technology.
Yep, by talking to the person who manufactured it.
No.
Isn't that what he does?
No.
What does he do?
He talks to a connection he has at the national...
Yeah, the person who developed the technology, right?
I don't think so. Does he say that? Maybe developed the technology, possibly. Yeah. Manufactured it, absolutely
No. It wasn't like a...
There, I'll fight you on that.
Okay.
Technicalities.
I'll take that.
That's how I beat Andrew.
Yeah, that's the only way. Not physically or anything.
No.
Don't look at the bruises.
He just doesn't. He's not a technicality man.
I'm anemic. I fell down the stairs on my own.
You're also just sore from working out.
That too. That is also very, very real. My hamstrings ache, throb, if you will.
So we start this episode with an entirely useless scene, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So Tanner returns after having not been here for 3 episodes.
Yep.
I
should have you thrown in jail.
3 episodes ago, she exited the scene to go to Connellsville because she thought the pilot was waking up. This episode, she exits the scene to go to Connellsville because the pilot woke up. It is a day later, I realize, but nothing has happened in her life. She drove to Connellsville, the dude wasn't okay, she drove back to Odyssey, and now she's about to do it again.
I mean, how far is Connellsville away, realistically? Like, did she just spend all day sitting in the hospital, or what?
I don't know.
It seems very redundant,
right, and
though.
so maybe she was out there doing suspicious stuff, but it's just like... And I realize if you were listening live and these episodes aired like a month apart, you might feel slightly differently, but it was ridiculous when she was like, I'm going to go to Connellsville to check on the dude. And I was like,
okay.
No. You haven't been in the last 2 episodes. Before that, you went to Connellsville to check on the dude.
Yeah. He might wake up. Oh my gosh. He woke up. And then when he brings up backup, when Polehouse brings up backup because they have a missing agent, she's like, yeah, of course I have backup. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You're so bad at this job.
Yeah.
Like,
she's really not good.
Either you're an incompetent, like, secret agent or you're an incompetent criminal, and neither one looks good for you, Agent Tanner.
Yeah, it's rough. So yeah, she gets mad at Whit and Polehouse for going out and vigilanteing,
Which,
fair, but also Polehouse isn't quite a vigilante because he is, in fact, the law.
yeah, he is a detective, so
But
yeah, and he's not a PI.
And then she gets all on edge of like, oh, do you guys not trust me? But she doesn't like do anything then to try and reconcile that. Like it feels very petty, her being like, you don't trust me, where she could be like, no, I represent the US government, you have to trust me or I'm like throwing you in prison. Or she could be like, here, let me show you a couple things that'll make me trust you. Instead she does none.
Yeah, she goes, I will not be interrogated. Let me go back to the hospital that I was just at.
Yep. Yeah.
Leave the scene, run away.
Right. And that's
Of course I have backup. I don't know what you're talking
the
about.
only thing I wrote down as new information is that we find out there was a full tire track at the scene.
Yeah, and the toothpick as well, right?
Yes, I think the toothpick is even later on.
Yeah.
Like the toothpick isn't even yet. Like that's truly Tanner's just there to be like, I'm going to Connellsville. You guys should trust me, but I'm also extremely suspicious. Bye.
Yep, nothing suspicious here.
The one thing I will say that I do love in this scene is Polehouse continuing to be just as much as he is a jerk, a frustrating character at times, I also am such a sucker for dry wit.
Oh yeah, no. And
he says in this scene that he doesn't trust anyone so that he can't be accused of discrimination. Which is fantastic.
Yeah, that was actually a really good line. And honestly, like, yeah, is Polehouse a great character? I don't know. But he is fun, and I do like his sense of humor. I think it is, like, enjoyable and funny, and it definitely adds to the show, especially this arc. Another thing that's established here, Whit brings up with Agent Tanner about the chip that's implanted in Monty's arm. He wants to know if it could be used to track him. Tanner is like, no, they weren't designed for that. And Whit's like, you basic, of course they were. I'm going to go do this and check it out on my own.
Right.
Like, because of course I know everything. Mm-hmm. And also, of course, Tanner lies to me. Why? I mean, I understand that, but then Tanner leaves and Whit kind of pulls Polehouse to the side and he's like, well, don't you think that maybe Tanner used the chip to track Monty here in the first place? And he's like, gasp! Oh my goodness!
But also, why would she need to?
She would already knew.
Right. Like, if she's working with Dirk Bangs, then, like, she doesn't need to track Monty.
No, not necessarily. I mean, unless, like, I don't know. Yeah. It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense for her to be having exact location on him when she has his phone number. And
and also, like, he was missing, when she didn't know where he was going to go, and then he was at Whit's house, and then, like, he ran around. Like, she hasn't interacted with Monty at all. If she knew, like, since coming to Odyssey, if she knew his location at all times, why not just intercept him?
Yeah. She's just bad at her job if she's the bad guy. I don't actually remember which side. I mean, they certainly set her up that she is sketchy and like she has some sort of nefarious involvement, but I don't know how.
Yeah, if all this is a red herring, screw you.
Yeah, a little bit.
Like just a wee bit. Whit kind of goes on this rant about being upset about all the deception and all the lies.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, yeah, sure, whatever. I guess we needed a moral.
You gotta pad the episode somehow.
Yep. And then Polehouse gets an anonymous tip about some equipment being dropped off at the Hagler's junkyard.
And some suspicious equipment, and he then
this is where the toothpick comes in.
Yeah, this is where the toothpick comes in. They talk about finding the toothpick at the scene. Recognizes that Buck is typically the one who uses who chooses toothpicks. Not too many other kids do that. So they need to get a DNA sample of Buck without him knowing. So saliva on a glass, strand of hair, whatever, any of those classic crime tropes for DNA, so that they can match it with the toothpick that they found at the scene of where Monty was kidnapped. So, and then this scene ends with Pull House then leaving and going to Hagler's junkyard. Tanner obviously already exited.
So yeah, then what? Oh, then we get
Wooten and Connie.
One of two scenes I really like in this episode. Where Wooten is he shows up at Wit's End delivering their mail first on his route because he wants an excuse to talk to Connie about Penny.
Because of their date last night, and of course Wooten's trying to play it off like, oh, it's no big deal. Connie reads him like a book, knows what's going on, and proceeds to list off all of these feelings that he must be having, which is interjected by Jess Harnell making, I don't know, automatopoeia noises, like, and
not that, Andrew. You're the future in this.
Yeah, in Jess Harnell automatopoeias. But yeah, it's actually really, really funny. And
especially when they need to recast Wooten.
That'll be me. That's what this podcast is for. It's my dry run as I grow into the role of Wooten for the show.
Yeah. Was that last episode that we established that you're Wooten
and I'm Eugene? Yeah, I believe that was the previous episode.
You just said I'm Eugene.
You're Eugene.
No, I know, but you said...
I was speaking on your
I know.
Yeah.
But, all right.
I'm bad at speaking. This isn't new for the Chalk Squad or for you.
No.
Of course, it's a great idea that
actually,
I
edit this so well, it is new for the Chalk Squad.
It's... Deep breaths. Yeah, so I don't know. Jess Harnell's noises just crack me up.
It's good.
And Connie calls him Smitten, and Wooten's like, "Isn't that some sort of fuzzy glove wear?"
Yes. Can we like mainstreamize the word smitten?
Yeah,
it's really
it's time
great
for it to come back.
I was listening to it and going, "Wow, that is like so like such like an old school whatever," and also I'm super into it. Let's make it happen, folks.
Some wholesome attraction, romantic and physical kind of together. Smitten is a great thing. I don't know if you're familiar with the Princess Diaries too, but there's a song about being smitten while playing badminton. Where is my kitten? And so that is what, that is why the smitten word lives forever in my head.
And that closes out our segment, Princess Corner, which has been on a long hiatus.
Well, I was in school. I had to do other things.
I do appreciate that piece of trivia. I might have to go listen to that song.
After the smitten comment, Wooten says that it's like you're living in a refrigerator box in the municipal lot that is my mind.
Yep. Which
is his way of describing, you know what I'm feeling right now.
I would like to point out, because, this podcast is nothing if not a careful critique of the AIO wiki.
Mm-hmm. That's 90% of what we do here.
That they have the quote as, "You're living in a refrigerator box in an invisible park of my mind."
It's
municipal.
It's definitely municipal.
It's municipal. I like to think that was added by someone who, much like Jay later in this episode with Adversary, just didn't know the word municipal.
It's adversarial.
So there's that. But yes, it is a good line, and Connie's like, yeah, I'll ask her this afternoon. Yeah, but I'm pretty sure she is very into you because I saw both of you last night. Wooten's like, that's great. I'd just like to hear it from her mouth.
Yep.
And I'm like, then you ask, buddy.
Honestly, you asked her out like literally 30 seconds after having met her. This is when you gotta follow it up. You can't start this way and not follow through.
I know, it's such a strong come on with like a quick fade.
Yeah, I've been
known
to
Andrew's
be. Yeah,
move?
I was gonna say that's definitely been my tactic.
come out of the gate swinging and then
real hard,
just
and then just taper off, lower those expectations.
then your
a little
anxiety
bit.
starts to kick in. You
Yep.
start second guessing
Oh, yeah.
everything. You're
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh no, was I reading too much into this? Do they just think I'm a friend?
Yeah, you
Did
gotta
I-
do some interrogative.
Was I too
questions.
comfortable with them?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh man,
Never
I
been
should-
there.
You've been too comfortable with them.
No, what? No, I just said never been there.
Oh yeah, never. Certainly never once had anxiety induced by the pace at which I am developing a relationship.
I have had anxiety induced by the pace at which Andrew is developing a relationship.
This show has had anxiety based on pace at which I develop a relationship.
Yeah. So as Wooten exits the scene, Wit enters it.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't fill Connie in on anything and just asks to talk to Eugene, who won't be until noon.
Yeah.
Then he exits the scene and the scene ends.
Yeah, literally Wit comes in, Connie's like, I have a lot of questions, and Wit's like, I'll
Oh,
get
yeah,
to
no,
them when I get to them.
Connie's like, how's Monty? Because she knows that much. And he's
Yeah.
like, it's complicated.
Yeah.
I want to talk to Eugene. Mm-hmm. I feel bad for Connie.
Yeah, why can't he tell Connie?
Why does he need to tell Eugene?
Eugene makes sense because for the, I guess, assistance in the technological side of things. I don't know. Not really. I mean, it's kind of proven later in this episode that he doesn't need Eugene. But, yeah.
He needed to bring someone in. Tom's not around anymore. Like, so, seriously, though. Is Eugene Wit's closest friend at this point? With Jack and Tom gone.
Yeah, probably. I mean, as far as yeah. Connie might be closer.
Bernard's gone as
Yeah,
well.
Bernard's gone.
Right. But, like, Connie, there's always been, like a paternal kind of relationship there. Whereas Eugene's a little bit more pure-y, especially now that he's married and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And I don't know, like, obviously, you know if you're listening that we haven't listened to a lot of New Odyssey. And so I don't know if
they give Wit a good friend character.
Yeah, like, I don't know if that's anything that gets developed. But it is weird to realize, like, oh, there's no one, like...
Jesus is the answer.
Like...
His best friend is Jesus.
Like, is part of the reason that Wit in these newer seasons, in these newer episodes, has become more and more of a god figure, is that because he doesn't have a Tom or a Jack or a Bernard to call him on his BS?
I
Like-
would argue, yeah, because
like,
there's a certain sense of grounding that having peers around you within
Right.
a fictional universe
Like,
does.
especially in the Tom relationship, where he
Yeah.
could just be like, "You're getting carried away, Wit," or the "It's mad scientist time again," which is a
Yeah.
Bernard line, or
Yeah.
whatever. But just that, like, the fact that there were other people who were on his level and could speak to him and call him out on stuff, and now we don't have it. Like, I wonder if that fuels some of this. Because even just thinking about all the Maury crap we've been going through, like, imagining Tom being in those scenes, like,
He would not let any of that happen, that is
No.
for sure.
no, like, there would be more of
Anarchy.
there'd be an intervention, there'd be more of a conscience to it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I hadn't thought about it in these terms before, but I wonder how much of that does color this experience. Because it's like he gets Polhoused as his, like, detective foil in these episodes, where it's like, hey, this is someone who I can, like, talk work with. But he doesn't have... Yeah, he's lacking in people
Yeah,
to speak into his life.
Yeah, he lacks, like,
Which is weird
really
to say about a
anybody-
fictional character, but, like...
But seriously, I mean, there's nobody, especially within the context of Odyssey, there have been characters in the past that exist in those types of relationships, and Paul McCusker worked on the show at that time. Like, it's not like these ideas are foreign to him. And, you know, with the absence of those relationships, I think that, yeah, we do see the character of Wit changing, and the direction in which they're taking the show as well, which is, you know, disappointing in my opinion, just because I don't think that it does the character justice. But I also understand that, like, there's other factors influencing it rather than just, you know, what creates a cohesive universe.
And I would say that, like, in general, the stuff I've been listening to newer, like, Wit is less central.
Yeah, oh yeah,
like,
for
he
sure.
is far more a character who just, like, pops in to speak some wisdom or some nonsense and then pops out.
Yeah.
And so maybe, like, so it's not quite as necessary. But I think the idea of the show moving him to a place where he just exists to speak truth into other characters' lives aligns with the he also doesn't have peers. Like, those two things are different aspects of the same decision being made.
Yeah.
And I don't know that, like, they're also in a tough spot where I don't know how easy it would be to introduce a peer. Like, the other characters had been there for so long.
Yeah.
Even Bernard is not a peer when he is introduced, but kind of evolves to that point over time. And Tom was there from the get-go, and Jack had the benefit of appearing while it wasn't there and getting established as a Wit.
Well, and as one of Wit's old friends.
Right,
from
and also
college.
has the history there. And so, yeah, it does just, I don't know, it all kind of feeds into some of the stuff that I think I have a harder time with. And then it's interesting because while all this is going on, we get a McCusker, you know, scripted, directed arc where Wit is more central than I think he is, you know, in the 10 years afterwards.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so,
I mean, I think about something like Kidsborough or like an arc like that, and that was even Paul Herlinger, so that was, you know.
I mean, that's right on the edge.
Yeah, yeah. But that his role in that, with him just kind of being a voice that kind of creates the world in which stuff is happening in, and then steps in to provide, you know, consult whenever asked, which I guess is just describing God.
I was gonna say,
yeah,
sounds
very biblical. Certainly, no lines to be connected there. But yeah, so yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think that the lack of peers is to the detriment of.
I think
the grounding of his character.
I don't think taking Wit out of the spotlight is a fundamentally flawed decision.
No,
but I think that coupled with no longer letting him be a flawed character is
problematic.
Right. Yeah. Creates some weird stuff.
Well, and especially because, like, as we previously said, it hasn't always been like this.
Sure.
Like, if you want to play this, it's the same Wit character as before, and we're building on this expanded universe and everything that Odyssey does, you know, as loose and mismatched as it is. Like, you can't have the character of Wit behaving completely differently in the beginning of the show to the end of the show when he's supposed to stay the same, relatively, you know, growth and whatever. But, you know, Hal Smith Wit would never subject Emily to what Andrei Stoica Wit did, you know. And it's not neither of those actors' faults. It's the writers' faults. Let's make sure we blame who we need to blame.
Yeah.
Phil Waller, looking at you.
Yeah. But yeah, okay. That's our Wit tangent. That actually, yeah. I'm glad I got that all out there. Now let's jump back in with
Wally and Polehouse.
Yeah, Wally and Polehouse. So Polehouse goes to visit Wally. They have a fun, quippy exchange. Wally is cooperative, which I appreciate, but gruff, which I also appreciate.
Yeah. As opposed to your normal charming self.
Yeah. He goes on to make a bad call, though. So I don't know how. Well, I guess so that is basically where that scene ends. Is Polehouse is just like, oh, I'm gonna look around for this stuff.
Yeah,
you know, it's in the back shed, and
we had a very specific tip off.
And Wally's just like, oh, okay, like I'll you know, you don't need to get a warrant. Like, I can cooperate.
Yeah, exactly.
But can he? Time will tell. We then jump to Eugene and Katrina. A fun scene at their house that kind of, I don't know, feels a little out of place. Like, there's not a ton that's established here, but Katrina's been looking into that house that they visited last night where Buck and Skint were living. And she's like, it's all very peculiar, it's not.
It doesn't look like a house that they would own.
Well,
I think
yeah.
is what they said last episode.
And then this one, she's like, look, I looked into it. There is a rental, but they're not actually, the ones renting it and all this stuff. And Eugene's just kind of like, yeah, like I'm still hoping the best. And he has a line that I think is really good, which is, I don't think we should confuse an odd situation with a bad situation.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, he kind of confronts her about, he's like, last time you were tutoring, like you had to pull out because you were too involved.
Yeah, you couldn't resist getting personally involved with your students. This is like a problem that you have. And Katrina is doing the same thing. Like, Eugene isn't wrong for calling her on it, but this is perhaps a different situation than before because of the severity of, the factors involved.
Yeah.
The house that they got, a key was given to a local businessman to do renovations, which is the friend that Skint has that obviously let him use the house as a front for, Buck's application and everything.
Yeah.
But the main point is that no one is supposed to be living there, and so they go and check it out? Are they going back to the house?
No. Connie, or Katrina asks Eugene to, like, talk to Buck.
Oh, yeah.
Or she says she's going to confront Buck about it. The thing that I think is really interesting is in the official guide for this episode, for this scene, is that there were cut lines from this scene. So this that their kind of conversation back and forth continued with Eugene wondering if her kind of throwing herself into this whole Buck thing was fueled by the news that they could not have children. And they recorded that and then cut it because they were like, we're going to save that to tackle down the line rather than kind of putting it into the middle of this other arc. But I think it is an interesting glimpse at least what was some of the on-page motivation for Katrina, even if it was not...
If it didn't get to the final product.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that is interesting. And they do... I don't know how much time they spend addressing that, but I do remember hearing a little about that post this.
There is apparently an episode, according to the guide, on album 55 called To Mend or Repair.
Okay.
That is the episode that talks about that.
About them not being able to have children.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But
very interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Then
we get Emily and Connie at Wit's End.
Right. She fills in Connie on that she's going to go work on a case with Buck. She's really charmed by Buck, and Connie makes a comment when she walks out about her being smitten.
Yeah, I guess everybody's smitten because
Buck shows up.
Yeah, and Trask wants to meet with Connie. That's also established here.
Oh, right, because Emily has the funny thing of like, oh, do you think you want, are you in trouble? And she's like, I hope not. I couldn't get into much trouble with,
art supplies.
Yeah, and then she makes a joke about her brother getting into a lot of trouble with eyeliner and
spackle and what's the third item? Heck.
Yeah, I don't know.
And baseball glove.
Really?
I believe.
It's not a baseball glove?
I think it's something boring like that.
I just remember it was Anne, or some Anne were the articles. Because that's how my brain works.
That is so interesting.
But But yeah, so then Buck arrives. Connie asks if he can come in. Oh, wait. So the thing I wanted to say, just at the mention of Trask, this was episodes ago that we talked about this, but we had a conversation about like how so many people have money related names from this arc, and like how is like Trask? What's the deal there? His first name is Benjamin.
Oh,
That's the money joke.
there it is.
So
That
I had
makes
that
sense.
revelation while editing
Benjamin.
one of the previous episodes, and was like, oh well, gotta say it. So yeah, and then Buck shows up. They go out on their
Date.
yeah yep they're going through the woods, retracing Dirk's steps, but Buck's pretending they're his steps between Gower's field and Hagler's junkyard. They have to cross a stream, and Buck holds Emily's hand as they go across the stones, and it's very well engineered. And
Yeah, it's super well engineered. Like wow, it's really good, and also very uncomfortable because
he dials up the charm and calls her pretty.
Yep. It's
And then-
easy to be a gentleman with such a pretty lady. Just laying it on thick, the southern charm. And then we get the Eagle brand shoes.
Yep. And then Jay.
Yes!
Oh my word, Jay.
He's like
Wooten and
Oscar
Jay
the
saved
Grouch.
this episode
yeah,
for me.
Seriously.
Jay just like jumps out of the woods. And,
Yeah.
You know.
I was on my way to my uncle's junkyard, and I
Yep.
saw you guys snooping around.
And holding hands.
Yeah.
And that was really cute.
Over
Guys
by
are in love.
Yeah, over by the creek there and everything.
Yeah, you heard me. Do I have to say it again in Braille?
That line is ironed into my subconscious. I don't know how, but it is.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's just...
I bet my case is bigger than your case.
And then he goes on to describe a literal case
yeah.
that is larger, which is incredible.
Oh, yeah. He's talking about, locks and stuff. It's very much the, him making, like, the car noises in the previous episode in front of Buck.
Well,
Which
and-
Buck watching Jay come up again must be like, oh my gosh, this kid.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, then Jay spills the beans real quick about the appleberry.
So fast.
Where he's like, oh man, Matthew's going to be so mad when he finds out that you told Buck about the appleberry. And Emily's like, Jay,
What?
you just told us about the appleberry?
Yeah.
And then he's...
It's like, gotta go.
Yep.
And then runs away.
He like stumbles through. Oh, it's so funny.
Yeah, and again with like the audio engineering, like the leaves rustling and the branches and everything, it's really funny. It translates very well.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's great. And then
This is where it's established that because Jay also mentions that Matthew's shoes are the ones with the eagle on them. And because he's like, of course you should know who wears those, the Eagle brand shoes. It's the guy you ditched at the carnival last night. Dun, dun, dun.
And Emily is like, oh, shoot.
Yeah.
I was concerned that I ditched him, but then I didn't follow up on that. I wonder if I ditched him.
Yeah. And then Emily kind of presses into Buck a little bit, and he's like, well, you never mentioned that it was an Appleberry phone. And Buck's like, look at the time. I've got to get back to its end.
Well, because she's a little bit like, you're a child like me, even if you're older. How do you have an appleberry?
Yeah.
Because it is that thing of like, right, you have to put yourself back in the time. And it was like, smartphones were very adult. Maybe not in 2011, but...
I feel like that was still very much like you had to be, like pretty full grown to have a smartphone back then.
So then they're gonna meet back at Wits End later, possibly with Matthew.
Buck wants to reintroduce himself or something.
Yep.
Re-meet him.
Yes. He
Not
does say-
suspicious at all.
No.
Certainly not.
No. What? Oh, and then we jump back to Hagler's.
With
where
Wally and Pullhouse.
Yeah, Wally doesn't have any printing equipment, and then Jay walks in and is like, "What? Did something happen to it?"
Yeah, where'd it go? Well, it was there yesterday. And Wally's like, Jay, what are you doing?
And I'm like, "Wally, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
What's your play
What's
here?
the angle here? And then afterwards he's like, okay, finally, I'll come clean. Like, suspend your disbelief, Polehouse, that I am a terrible person, and I'll be honest with you.
Right.
But it's only after he hides the fact that, like, the printing equipment came through the shop.
Like, I understand him not necessarily wanting to go to Polehouse and be like, hey, I got this suspicious equipment. But when Polehouse shows up, he should probably just show him it.
Yeah, for sure. Especially because, like, when they dropped off the equipment, like, Wally totally knew that this was sus. Like, he was very much on it, and they tracked him and everything, and, you know, like, Wally is no spring chicken in this situation at all, which is why him being, like, caught in that, you know, Jay, like, why are you blabbing thing, it just feels kind of strange, just because it doesn't really feel like what that character would naturally do in that moment. But again, another instance of Jay just blabbing something and it being, like, you know, exposition that creates humor and, you know, drives the plot forward. One of the few bright spots of this episode.
Yeah, and it's not, it's whatever. And so he's then like, okay, you know, if we can have a truce here, Polehouse, like, and Polehouse is like, yeah, all right, for a little bit, whatever. And so he's going to show him the equipment and also, like, I assume fill him in on all the GPS related stuff.
Yeah,
from their
about the
snooping.
location and everything.
Then we jump to Wit's End. Wit's up in his office. He gets off the phone with Diane, who gave him a program to download to track Monty with.
Using the chip, obviously.
Yeah. The fun thing here, and possibly unintentional, but, like, I like to think that this was intentional given some of the other stuff we know. So in the oft-mentioned and incredible TV show Twin Peaks, the lead detective who works for a government agency, I forget where, probably FBI, he has a secretary back in the office who we never see, who he's always making phone calls to, named Diane.
Interesting.
So he's just like, he's always on the phone speaking with Diane, who's the person back there and who we never actually see. And knowing the Paul McCusker's Twin Peaks connections, I was like,
perfect.
Maybe just like a complete accident, but if not, pretty funny.
Yeah,
that,
it could
like,
just be a Freudian slip type thing.
That that the unnamed government agent, or the unseen government agent in this scene is Diane.
Yeah.
I just liked that because immediately.
But if it was a Twin Peaks reference, Paul McCusker, please be sure to let us know.
Oh, always. Even if you can't say it on record, just slip us a note and say don't tell anyone, and we won't.
We won't. Just between you, me, and the fence post here, Mr. McCusker.
And I'm the fence post in this scenario.
Yeah. Well, you are taller than me.
It's true. Now you've got that picture in your mind, Chalk Squad. So then Eugene shows up and Whit kind of fills him in on everything. He's like, Eugene's like, isn't this kind of illegal? And Whit's like, well, I've still got my government security clearances and so does Diane, so we're cool.
And Eugene's like, why do you still have your clearances? And he's like, well, I can't really tell you that because that's what the clearances are for.
Yeah. But also, like, such yada yada.
Yeah, so yada yada.
So, like, Eugene's going to hook the satellite dish on top of Wit's End. That's just always there.
Yeah, of course.
To the computer so that they can, like, get Monty's location through the chip that's implanted in his arm and a piece of software that was that was sent to Wit by Diane. And I'm just like, boy, is all of this just, like, sci-fi gobbledygook. But whatever.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it would have been more realistic if they just tracked him using his phone.
For sure. Yep, or maybe put an air tag on him. Hey, that's relevant.
$35.
So then Connie calls up to say that Buck's there, or that she's going out for Eugene to, handle Buck when he comes in. And then Wit's like, oh, well, if Buck's coming, I have something for you to do. And
in reference to getting the DNA.
Which is going to be a comedy of errors next episode, I am sure. Because
I think if I remember it correctly.
Eugene trying to get someone's DNA. Like, Eugene cannot be subtle, cannot be sneaky.
No, it's not allowed.
It's going to be rough.
Yeah.
But
I'm guessing.
maybe
like-
it'll be fun. And then Eugene's like, oh, actually, I'll fill you in on some of Katrina's findings as well.
Let's compare notes about
Right.
this situation, because it is kind of a convergence of these, two parties, Whit and Paul House, and Eugene and Katrina both have different independent relationships with the same person that are very connected because of that person's central involvement in apparently everything.
Very true. And thank God they decide to do this off screen.
Yeah, thank goodness we don't get another scene of recap. But I mean, it could have padded it out for like another 2.5 minutes. We could have gotten a 24-minute episode. But
The other thing we have in this scene, which I'm just like, man, Eugene, like, you've known Whit for so long. How is this still a surprise? But Eugene's just like, wow, Whit, you're being really calm considering your grandson was kidnapped.
yeah. And Whit's like, oh, I'm not calm. I'm completely internalizing it. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. That's really great.
Yeah.
That's the way
he's
that you
putting
should
all
handle
of his energy into hacking the Secret Service's GPS system.
Yeah, the embedded chips in the arms of GPS, that's totally legal and very much would not get a normal person thrown in jail.
Yeah. Well, and if anybody wants to hack our chips, Andrew and I are both chips now.
Yes,
so,
we are. I'm running the latest Intel 5G right now. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I mean, the glitches are minimal. I've only had to stop and buffer like 3 times today, it's actually pretty good for me.
So yeah, if you wanna hack the world and find us, go right ahead, folks.
Yep.
It's definitely easier to hack our bodies than our phones. That's a joke. It's not.
With that being said,
Yep. Then we have a scene of Emily and Matthew.
where no hacking is happening.
Emily apologizes to Matthew for ditching him.
Which is a good scene.
I agree.
Yeah, good moment.
And then immediately the script is flipped because she tells Matthew about the phone thing, and Matthew's like, oh, Buck heard that? I don't trust Buck. And Emily's like, hey, you don't trust Buck because, like, you're in love with me and I'm in love with him. And he's like, no, he's just suspicious. Jay said, you're listening to Jay now? Listen to yourself,
He's
man.
not to be trusted.
I don't trust him because he's not to be trusted. Yeah.
I'm gonna use that.
And then Matthew decides to head to Wits End on his own. Mm-hmm. And
Well, because there's this whole they're gonna go to Wits End together, and then Emily's like, "Don't embarrass me in front of my crush," and Matthew's like, "Well, I can't make any promises because I don't trust the guy," and then he's like, "Well, I guess I'll probably I'm better off on my own," and then Matthews goes, "Oh yeah, it's better that way," and it's a very interesting, kind of somber way to end the episode. With them.
And then Chris completely throws everything into confusion when she goes, I'm on the edge of my seat. No, literally, I'm on the edge of my seat. And then scoots back. And I'm like, Chris, this might be the least suspenseful episode break we've had in this arc. Or possibly in Odyssey. Like, as far as, like, multi-parts go.
It ends with 2 kids walking to Wits End in the summer.
One kid walking to Wits End. Because they're not both going together. Because that's the whole thing.
Well,
Because Emily doesn't...
aren't they both heading to Wits End? They're just not, walking together, or what?
I don't think Emily's headed to Wits End. I think Emily's headed home. Matthew's headed to Wits End.
Okay.
Regardless, it's so not suspenseful. Really, nothing set up in this episode built any kind of suspense.
Yeah, I mean, last
It was
episode
way more suspenseful
included
when Monty got kidnapped.
Yeah, Monty getting kidnapped for the second time.
But yeah. And then she also goes on to say, when good people unite, the truth can be seen more clearly, which is an interesting take.
Yeah, I think it's more of when people unite, they're more self-assured.
Yeah. And she ends it with saying, and tune in and we'll see how this continues with the Green Ring conspiracy. And it was just like, so we didn't talk about it, but twice in this episode, people said the Green Ring conspiracy, and then her saying in the credits, I'm like, all right, you guys are trying so hard to make this name catch on.
It worked.
It did,
It didn't not work.
but it is annoying.
I mean, I'm gonna credit that more so to like the radio promos than them saying it repeatedly within the show.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Wit and Eugene or Polehouse say Green Ring Conspiracy. I know Wit says Green Ring Conspiracy this episode.
Yep. It happens in the Whit and Eugene's discussion, and maybe in the Tanner conversation earlier on. But yeah, it's
And that is
fun.
the end of the episode.
It is the end. Hey, Andrew, discussion question. Have you ever felt like Matthew did after Emily left him at the carnival? That's a discussion question.
Have I ever... I mean... yeah, I've been ditched by my friends.
Right!
That's happened. Friend of the show, Nathan Haverstick, ditched me one time, and I got mad at him, and so I got my nose pierced while he was out hanging out with somebody else. And I don't hold it against him. What about you, Dylan? You've ever been ditched by your friends?
100%, buddy.
Yeah.
Do you have
you?
friends if you haven't been ditched by them?
No, certainly not. Especially if there's a girl involved.
Or in this instance, a boy.
Yeah, well, yeah. Also, how did Detective Polehouse's bias against Wally Hagler affect his judgment?
It made it bad.
Yeah. It just made it so bad.
Yeah. All right. General feelings on the episode, Andrew?
Thoroughly meh. Like lukewarm mashed potatoes. I don't know. It's there.
It's not bad by any means.
No.
It just
gets
slightly
where it
progresses
needs to
the
go,
plot.
hopefully.
There's a couple charming scenes, and then it's over.
Well, and, it seems like with the Green Ring that, like, every 3 episodes, one of them is really big because, it takes place in over a day and whatever. And this very much feels like the meat and potatoes for something that's going to be important later in this day 3.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's not necessarily a criticism. I don't know how I would have made this episode better, but I wasn't. Yeah, didn't super excite me.
No.
Like there is part of me covering these episodes that makes me think like, could have this story been told in 6 episodes?
Yeah. I think it could have been told way faster, just because, like, if they sped up the timeline a little bit and whittled down some of the tangential stuff that's going on, I feel like the amount of information that has been presented does not match up with how much time they've taken to present it.
Right.
Like, I feel like at this point, we as a listener have a pretty darn good idea as to what's going on.
Yeah.
Right,
and we are like 2 months into it.
Yeah, exactly. It totally didn't need to be that long.
Yeah. But it's not really hurting my enjoyment, and I think part of the problem too is us analyzing it in this way.
Straight
whereas
through,
if
for
you're
sure.
just listening to it on, a CD or on the radio or whatever, it's probably probably not that big a deal. Man, a CD or a radio, how old am I? If you're listening to it on the app.
Yeah. Or the CD or the radio. I mean, I feel like with the Odyssey fandom, there's a good amount of CDs still going around.
Probably.
At least I hope so.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Anything you want to plug?
Certainly not.
Yeah.
Anything for you?
I got nothing. I just want to plug it being summer.
Yeah,
If you're in
it
the northern
is summer.
hemisphere, enjoy that.
Yeah, get outside, get some sun, spend some time with people that you love, rest up, take care of yourself, know that the Wad Fam Chalk Pod loves you. And with that being said,
We will be back next week for episode 686, The Green Ring Conspiracy, Part 8.
bye guys.
Bye.
Wad Fam Chalk Pod is a presentation of the Liddens Podcast Co-op. Follow the podcast at Wad Fam Chalk Pod on Twitter and Instagram, or email us at wadfamchalkpod@gmail.com. The Green Ring Conspiracy Part 7 was hosted by Dylan Weaver and Andrew Sabo and edited by Dylan Weaver. And I'm Nathan Haverstick, hoping you'll join us again next time for more of the Wad Fam Chalk Pod.